times as many. So what is behind Donald Trump's appeal? Let's bring in Matt Schlapp. He's a former political director for George W. Bush. He is the chairman of the American Conservative Union. Matt, thanks so much for being here. So answer that question. What is it that the respondents who give him 24% see in Trump?
Well, I think the more people in Washington, D.C., inside the Beltway, criticize him and mock him, the more people out in the country flock to him. He's anti-establishment. He's iconoclastic. He's definitely outside the little clique of Republicans in Washington. And there's something that's just very appealing to voters about that type of candidate.
And you say, in terms of his GOP rivals, that it's actually Ted Cruz who you believe is doing this right in terms of not mocking Donald Trump. But really, I mean, what are you suggesting? What would you have Jeb Bush do?
Look, I think they each ought to be honest when they get these questions. And if they've been offended by what Donald Trump has said, they're right to criticize him. There's nothing wrong with that. But, you know, there is this feeling that somehow there are kind of a group of Washington, D.C. Republican insiders that usually have the biggest role in picking who our nominee is. And I think at this time in American politics, Republicans in the primaries across this country really want to break that model. They really want to, grassroots people want to have their say in who their nominee is going to be. So the fact that our nominating process is so wide open gives everybody a voice and a role.
Let me put up this poll again, the ABC News poll, because this is what's so striking. He's at 24%. That's 6 times higher than he was just in May. And again, he is almost twice what Scott Walker is. He is twice what Jeb Bush is. Now, what's interesting about this poll is that it was a 4-day poll. 3 of the days were before his McCain POW comments. 1 day, we're told by the poll takers that the numbers went down after the McCain POW comments. So what do you think that means? Will what he said about POWs and John McCain, even though he has tried walking it back a bit, will that come to hurt him?
Well, first thing Donald Trump did is he just picked a fight. He's saying real things, just as he's always done in his public career. He understands the media well. So these polls, he's obviously popped in the polls because he's gotten so much media coverage on the fact that he's saying, you know, he's saying things that get a lot of coverage and that are somewhat controversial. But these polls are going to change, so I'd say you're right. I think you know, they're going to ebb and flow, and Donald Trump has been on a real upward trajectory. He's had a rougher couple days in the media because, you know, it's one thing to pick a fight with John McCain. That's totally legitimate. John McCain has really strayed from his conservative political beliefs as he's been in the Senate. It's a whole other thing to pick a fight with military men and women. I don't think Donald Trump has any intent to have that fight. So he definitely has to walk that piece back. But picking a fight with John McCain, it's actually pretty smart.
But let's talk about the effect that it has on the military men and women, because Jeb Bush seized on this. He sent out a tweet saying, enough with the slanderous attacks at Senator John McCain and all of our veterans, particularly POWs who have earned our respect and admiration. Now, we should point out that this is different than what Jeb Bush said in 2005 when there were attacks on John Kerry. Of course, you remember famously there were the Swift boat attacks. Let me read you what he said in January of 2005. At that time, he said, as someone who truly understands the risk of standing up for something, I simply cannot express in words how much I value their willingness, meaning the Swift boaters, to stand up against John Kerry. So what do you think? I mean, given that there are 2 ways to play this, do you think that all of the other candidates should come out and take a shot at Donald Trump for taking a shot at POWs?
No, I really don't. The more these candidates, well, look, they should do what they want, right? But the more these candidates feel like they're going to marginalize Donald Trump by attacking him, the opposite's going to happen. And that's been a fact in these polls. The more it looks like they're all jumping on him, the better he does, because that just plays into this idea that he's the outsider, he's the underdog taking on the insider. So what they ought to do is take a breath and realize that polls will go up and will go down in this process, and they ought to engage Donald Trump just as they should all the other candidates on the issues that matter. And if they've got the winning arguments, they're going to win. Now, for Jeb Bush, there is a benefit to this, which is the extent to which the Republican nominating process looks a bit like a brawl and looks chaotic. I do think it plays into his major case, which is, look, get to me as soon as you can, because eventually you probably think I'm going to get this nomination, and I can I can nail it down quicker. So he's going to play into that as well.
Matt Schlapp with advice for the GOP candidates. Thanks so much for being on.